There are moments in life when one meets a person whose mere presence seems to alter the atmosphere of a room. Their words may be few, their gestures subtle, but something in them disturbs, fascinates, or even unsettles those around them. We may call it charisma, intensity, or presence, but what we are truly encountering is a radiance of psychic energy that originates deep within. Such individuals have walked through the inner fires. They have descended into the darker regions of their own nature and returned not unscathed, but whole. Their aura is not a manufactured brightness, but a consequence of psychological integration. In their being, opposites coexist. They carry both gentleness and strength, serenity and storm, humility and an unshakable awareness of their inner truth. What is commonly referred to as an aura in spiritual or metaphysical discourse can be understood from a psychological perspective as the outward manifestation of one's inner psychic condition. Though the term aura evokes images of glowing fields and invisible energy, its essence is far more grounded in human depth psychology. It is not so much a supernatural halo as it is the consequence of accumulated inner work, conscious and unconscious contents, that shape the way one's presence is felt by others. This presence, this field, emanates from what psychology would call the self, the totality of conscious and unconscious aspects of a person, including both their ego identity and the hidden depths they have not yet integrated. In analytical psychology, the self is not simply the ego, nor is it some idealized version of the individual. It is the organizing principle of the psyche, the regulating center that seeks wholeness. As a person engages in the process of individuation, the lifelong unfolding and integration of unconscious elements, they begin to radiate a presence that affects others without needing to speak a word. This is not charisma in the superficial sense, nor is it dominance. Rather, it is the felt sense that this person has encountered themselves at a level most devoid. They have wrestled with contradictions, made contact with the shadow, and brought forth fragments of their inner world that were once exiled. The aura is not crafted, it is revealed. What others experience as powerful energy is the unconscious responding to the psychic weight of someone who is psychologically whole or moving toward wholeness. The reason this energy can be so disruptive is because most individuals have not confronted the unconscious within themselves. When such a person comes into contact with someone who has, they are unknowingly drawn into a field of resonance. The unconscious in them stirs, not always pleasantly. What had been dormant, disowned, or denied becomes activated. The aura is therefore less about the one who possesses it and more about what it awakens in those around them. The psychic energy that constitutes this aura is not homogeneous. It is composed of differentiated contents, dreams, traumas, insights, memories, symbols, desires, intuitions, fears, and contradictions. It is the landscape of the interior world, cultivated and digested over time. Every act of self-reflection, every willingness to suffer one's own depths, contributes to the strengthening of this field. This is why those who carry a powerful aura often have histories marked by suffering, loss, or inner transformation. They have not merely survived difficulty, they have metabolized it into meaning. The aura then becomes the visible expression of an invisible alchemy. Such individuals are not always aware of the effect they have. They may enter a room and notice shifts in the atmosphere, conversations halt, eyes follow them, or silence deepens. They may notice that others feel inexplicably drawn to them, confessing secrets, seeking advice, or reacting defensively. These reactions are not always conscious. What is happening is that the unintegrated psyche of others perceives, however vaguely, the inner density of this person. It is not that the one with the powerful aura imposes anything. Rather, their very being exerts a kind of gravitational pull. Their psychic integration resonates on an unconscious level with others, and this resonance either harmonizes or destabilizes, depending on the psychological state of those they encounter. The aura is thus a mirror. It reflects what others carry within themselves but cannot yet face. It may stir longing in one person and irritation in another. It may evoke reverence or suspicion, admiration or envy. These reactions do not speak to the moral character of the one who carries the aura, but rather to the inner configuration of those in their presence. In this sense, the aura exposes. It strips away illusion. And in a world where many rely on masks and personas to maintain equilibrium, such exposure can be deeply unsettling. One cannot cultivate such an aura through mere performance or spiritual posturing. It does not arise from affirmations, rituals, or the adoption of mystical language. It is the consequence of contact with the real psychic reality, not fantasy. It emerges from facing one's fears, reconciling inner opposites, and integrating both light and shadow into a coherent sense of self. This integration does not result in perfection, but in authenticity. The aura, then, is a side effect of wholeness, not a goal in itself. There is also a symbolic dimension to the aura that reflects the archetypal energies active within the psyche. When someone becomes conscious of particular archetypes, the wise old man, the hero, the great mother, the trickster, they embody energies that have immense psychological force. These energies, when lived rather than merely understood intellectually, radiate through the person. The aura can thus reflect not only the personal unconscious, but also the collective unconscious, making the individual a vessel for forces larger than themselves. This, too, is part of what others feel when they sense a powerful presence. In this light, the aura is not a mystical appendage, but a psychological reality. It is the field of energy that forms around someone whose psyche has become harmonized between inner and outer worlds, between conscious intent and unconscious truth. This harmony creates a coherence that others detect instinctively, even if they lack the words to name it. And because few people experience such coherence within themselves, they often find it difficult to tolerate in others. There is also a tension created when the aura is too powerful for its context. The individual may find themselves misread, alienated, or placed into roles they did not choose. People may project onto them the image of the healer, the savior, the threat, or the enigma. These projections are a kind of psychic defense. They allow others to keep a distance from the real presence in front of them. The aura has become too much, not because it is aggressive, but because it exposes what others are not ready to integrate. And so the individual must learn to carry this energy with responsibility, knowing when to step forward and when to withdraw, not out of fear, but out of discernment. To have such an aura is to exist as a psychological stimulus in the environment. One does not merely occupy space, one transforms it. This transformation can be quiet or intense, subtle or undeniable, but it always arises from the same source, the individual's willingness to encounter themselves fully, and in doing so to become transparent to something deeper than the ego. The aura is the echo of that encounter. The presence of a person who has cultivated significant psychic energy often provokes unexpected and involuntary reactions in others. This is not because the individual consciously attempts to disturb or influence their surroundings, but rather because their very presence resonates with aspects of the human psyche that lie dormant in those around them. When someone has undertaken deep inner work facing the shadow, reconciling inner conflicts, embracing the unconscious, they become a mirror for others, often revealing what those others have not yet been willing to face within themselves. The power of such a person lies not in their actions, but in what they unconsciously evoke. Their presence alone is enough to stimulate psychic movement in others, triggering projections, emotional responses, or even irrational discomfort. This is not a matter of personal conflict, but a psychological dynamic rooted in the structure of the human psyche. Psychic energy is not evenly distributed. Most people live without integrating significant portions of their unconscious, remaining largely lighted with the ego and its narrow, familiar patterns. They operate from conditioned responses, social roles, and unexamined beliefs. But in the rare case where someone has confronted the deeper layers of their being, perhaps through crisis, introspection, dream work, or honest suffering, they become infused with a different kind of vitality. This vitality is not to be confused with physical energy or charisma. It is a depth of presence, an inner coherence that makes them psychologically dense, often without saying a word. When they enter a space, their energy, though invisible, is felt. The unconscious of others picks up on it, long before the conscious mind becomes aware. Such a presence can create dissonance in the unintegrated psyche. The average person, having avoided their own unconscious, feels an inexplicable disturbance in the presence of someone who carries theirs openly. This disturbance is not necessarily recognized as coming from within. Instead, it is projected outward. The individual with the powerful aura becomes the target of judgment, suspicion, fascination, or idealization. These reactions have little to do with the actual character or behavior of the person, and much more to do with the internal state of the one responding. The psyche, when confronted with its own unconscious material, experiences anxiety, and this anxiety must find an object. The person who stirs it becomes that object. This is why powerful psychic energy polarizes. Some are drawn to it as if by gravitational force, seeking the clarity or depth they cannot find within themselves. Others are repelled, experiencing the person as too intense, too strange, or too different to be trusted. The reaction one has says more about their own level of psychological development than it does about the person they are responding to. In this way, the one with the powerful aura becomes a litmus test for the psychic condition of those around them. They do not provoke reactions deliberately. Their energy, shaped by internal transformation, resonates with the unconscious layers of others, drawing up contents that had long been buried. There is also an archetypal dimension to this disturbance. Within each person lies a storehouse of archetypes, universal psychic patterns that exist beyond personal experience. When someone embodies one of these archetypes, whether knowingly or not, their presence activates a deep resonance in others. For example, someone who has integrated the archetype of the wise one may be experienced as intimidating or profoundly comforting, depending on whether the observer has made peace with their own need for guidance. The archetype of the warrior may be seen as inspiring or threatening. The lover may be seen as alluring or dangerous. These responses are not rational. They are archetypal echoes awakened by psychic energy. The more integrated the person is, the more they unconsciously carry such archetypes in their being. This is part of what makes them difficult for others to handle. In ordinary social interactions, people tend to relate through personas, masks created to conform, to be accepted, to avoid discomfort. But the person with integrated psychic energy no longer relies on the persona in the same way. They do not reject it altogether, but they use it consciously rather than being used by it. This creates a rupture in the usual flow of social dynamics. Others expect certain cues, certain responses, certain patterns of behavior. But these cues often fail in the presence of someone who is rooted in something deeper. The usual rituals of interaction, small talk, performative politeness, subtle games of dominance and submission lose their meaning. This absence of shared illusion creates a kind of psychic nakedness. The individual who is used to navigating the world through surface conventions now feels exposed, uncertain, even vulnerable. The psychic energy of the other has disrupted the defense mechanisms they did not even realize they were using. What is too often misunderstood is that this energetic impact is not a matter of willpower or ego strength. It is the result of alignment between conscious and unconscious elements of the psyche. When someone has made the unconscious more conscious, when they have embraced rather than repressed their fears, longings, and contradictions, they radiate a kind of psychic signal. That signal is not always loud, but it is deeply penetrating. It travels beneath spoken words, beneath appearances, and touches the interior life of others without invitation. This is why people sometimes react to such individuals with extremes, admiration that borders on obsession or hostility that seems irrational. What they are really reacting to is their own soul mirrored back at them in a way that feels too close, too real. The presence of such psychic energy can also have a transformative effect, not just a disruptive one. Those who are ready, even unconsciously, to face their own depths may feel inspired or awakened by contact with someone who has done this work. The powerful aura becomes a catalyst, stirring not just defense, but also growth. It may lead someone to examine their dreams more seriously, to question the meaning of their life, or to begin the painful but necessary work of facing their own shadow. This catalytic effect is not the result of persuasion or argument, but of resonance. It is the unconscious recognizing itself in another. But this transformation is rarely comfortable. Most people resist it. They do not want to be seen beneath the masks. They do not want to remember the parts of themselves they have buried. And so they retreat, or they attack, or they attempt to reduce the person before them to something manageable by labeling, dismissing, or distorting them. This is the cost of carrying a powerful aura. It is not a gift that brings only praise. It is a condition that invites both projection and resistance. The person who carries such energy must learn to navigate this dynamic without bitterness or inflation. They must understand that the reactions they provoke are not personal, even though they are often experienced as such. They are psychological. They arise from the deep structures of the human psyche, where the known and unknown are in constant tension. To live in a way that stirs others so profoundly is to bear a strange burden, one of solitude, responsibility, and clarity. The aura is not something they wield. It is something they carry because of the work they have done and the truth they have refused to abandon.